Hello and welcome to Strip Panel Naked. I'm Haas and I'm going to show you some of the cool stuff lurking in the pages of some of the best comics. When your story is actually rather character driven, that is, when character is just as important as plot, you need to establish the main players quite quickly. As always with storytelling, there's a whole host of options you've got available to you, and the tough part is actually balancing the character building with a forward-moving narrative. If you rush ahead with plot too quickly, you're going to struggle to get an audience on side with your protagonists. On the other hand, if you spend too long trying to build these people at the start of the story, then you end up playing catch-up with the narrative. So what Jeff Lemire, Lenox and Jordie Bellaire do in the opening pages of Plutona is actually quite stunning. It's lean, efficient storytelling that advances via small stories across pages while developing what we need to know about our characters in a very succinct, engaging and clever way. So what is it that they do? Well, they create mirroring to establish the differences and similarities between characters across some pages. They do it particularly effectively right at the start of the first issue. After we have the opening page of the superhero's apparent dead body, we open on the pages of Teddy, Diane, Ray and me. And I want to take a look at these 4 pages as a perfect example of how it all works. You'll probably notice from looking at them that they're laid out in the same way. They begin with a close-up on a face, then a wide panel establishing a scene, followed by a row of panels that show a short action, which initially begins with 3 and then ends up being 2, and ending on a final beat that, in the first instance anyway, leads on to the next page. And these 4 pages all sit in pairs, so Teddy and Diane sit side by side, and when you open the comic to read those pages, they lay together almost like a double-page spread. So it's obvious that this coupling is occurring, and if you needed any more evidence that it's purposeful, you can see it across the top of the pages, where the mirroring of the faces creates one whole, and we'll get into faces more in a second, but first let's just look at how the pages break down and what we actually learn from them. So Teddy's page is first, and we'll lead with colour because it's actually quite striking. His room is green, and that's a pretty dominating colour throughout his set of panels. Green can mean a lot of things, but one we often think of is jealousy. You know the saying, green with envy. It's an interesting colour to throw at Teddy because of what happens later in the comic, and so it's hard not to see this as having some kind of subtextual meaning for the page. And we open the page with dialogue about superheroes and villains over the radio. We're learning about the world here, and this exists in a place where we have superheroes and villains, but also drawing some significance to Teddy. Clearly we're to associate him with this, and that's true because we learn a little further down the page that he's logging superheroes and their activity. On the second panel, you get a wide shot of his room. He sat at his laptop, radio next to him, still in his pajamas. There are press clippings on the wall in front of him, the most identifiable being this woman here wearing a helmet type thing, which you can see is the same as the poster on the left. So we're to assume that these are press clippings of superhero stories. And the clippings are particularly interesting because they lend to a sort of obsessiveness that maybe he's going to take this too far. And on the bookshelf you can make out Heroes Volume 1 and Heroes Volume 2, but he's clearly meticulous as a person. He's got numbered volumes and keeps detailed notes and logs. And then the bottom panel has Teddy's dad talk to him. He never actually speaks in this page and he doesn't respond to his dad, he just looks at him. And I also found it kind of interesting that he's got purple eyes, which correspond to the poster of Plutona in the background of that final panel. He only has eyes for her, maybe. So in this one page we've established a significant amount about both the world and Teddy, and that's a fair chunk of character exposition out of the way in one page. And next we get Diane, and with her page again it's washed in a particular colour, this time purple. Purple works nicely for Diane because it's soft but not too girly. She's giving off a hard edge, and so switching from that traditional girl colour of pink to a purple, you know, the colour of bruises, we get a bit of what she's like through that. And the first panel is linked with Teddy from that framing, which indicates that maybe these two are shy. They don't exist without someone else, they can't step all the way out into the frame. It'll contrast with the next 2 pages of Ray and me that we'll see shortly. And the next panel shows off her room. Here we have the leather jacket, the messy floor, the seemingly newer radio than Teddy has, lipstick and the sorts on the dresser, also lots of stickers adorning everything, and a skull on the back wall, but it's also got a little love heart underneath it, which builds up this kind of idea of an outer hardness to Diane, but she's clearly kind of got a soft inside, and we do see more about her family life, as her interaction with her mum shows a sweetness we didn't get with Teddy. And so in 2 pages that's a whole lot of character building, right? It works particularly as it's not just a single page, but it's these repeated character introductions all in one go, so they naturally kind of bounce off of each other. And then you turn the page and you get another 2. Probably the most striking change is we get both eyes in the top panel for Ray and me. And these are 2 stronger characters we encounter in this series, so it's only right that they have these more dominating panels. With Ray, we quickly learn his life isn't ideal. Muted greys cover the page and it makes it all very desaturated. The one bright moment is Ray stealing the bag of cigarettes from his dad, and that light, that bright pink, comes from outside. It gives the impression that outside of this room, outside of this house, things are better for Ray. You've also got the cracked walls, the dad with beer still in his hand and empties on the table, slurring his words. Where we had Teddy's dad checking in on him in the first page, and Diane's mum and her having a nice conversation, now it's the other way around. And with me, the orange of the page denotes her feistiness. You can see it straight from the first panel, she's hot-tempered, though it does fade out during the page, going from a strong orange to a much paler, more yellow version on the bottom row. And throughout this page, we learn here she's got a brother, has breakfast with her family, and it's the sort of family that puts grades and drawings on the fridge. Her biggest problem seems to be she has to look after a younger brother. But again, these pages work in tandem. Where the first two showcase bedrooms, here we focus on family life. I found these opening pages perfect because they managed to condense in 2 double spreads what a lot of comics don't manage to do in whole issues or even in whole story arcs. They tell complete and interesting stories and develop 4 uniquely different characters. What Lemire, Lenox, and Bellaire aren't afraid to do is establish character tropes: the nerd, the sidekick, the loner, and the edgy teen who wants to dip into the dark side. But these creators really build it cleverly in 3 ways. So the first is the individual page, which sets up a single character. And the second is the fact the pages are rendered in spreads, so you are forced to compare them because of the mirroring we talked about at the beginning of the video. And thirdly, the book asks you to make that comparison across both pairs of characters. And further, because Teddy and Diane are together as a pair, and Ray and me the other pair, it asks you to compare both of those together too. By doing that, it elevates the tropes, because it's not just about them, but how they all fit together. How do Diane and me fit as a whole? They both have wards, Diane her dog and me her brother, but look at how differently they react to that responsibility. Me ends her page hitting her brother, Diane by cuddling a new puppy. It just elevates that storytelling by opening the scope and broadening the view. And that's how Lemire, Lenox, and Bellaire create the compelling opening. You care about the characters already, you're intrigued as to how these 4 characters become linked with the opening page of the dead superhero, and you understand after only 4 pages the world we live in, the characters, and a lot about their deeper motivations. And that's really kind of incredible. It's a great example of how to kick off a story in the right way. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy Strip Panel Naked, consider supporting our Patreon, where you get access to reading lists, articles, and lots of annotated page breakdowns to go along with every video. Also, check out my Twitter at HassanOE, where I routinely post extra comic page annotations for various things I'm reading each week. And this episode was again edited by the amazing @UCKeish. You should check out his work on Twitter. See you next time.